So once again, Hare Krishna, this is day 8, Gita Gyan, Essence of the Bhagavad Gita, and we will discuss chapter 8 today. So before that, we dedicate this presentation to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada, Founder Acharya of this International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And if you can join us together, we can say the Mangalacharan prayers to invoke auspiciousness and take the blessings of the Acharyas. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. If you can say it together with me. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Tatsat. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vigna Vinasha Narasimha Iti Namine. Mukam karoti vachalam pandum langayitim girim yatkripa tamaham vande Sri Guru Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanyamishwaram. Om Tatsat. So with the blessings of Sri Sri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Mai and Sri Sri Nitai Sundar Gaura Hari, and this is Sri Sri Radha Gokulananda. So we can continue with chapter 8 today. So we begin with Gita Mahatma. So we have already completed the Gita Mahatma poem by Sripad Sankaracharya. It was 7 verses only. So, but Gita Mahatma, the word Gita Mahatma means glorification of the Gita. So it's not, that particular poem was not the only glorification. So there are many other places where Gita Mahatma is spoken. So here is another one. This is from the Sri Vaishnavaniya Tantra Sara. It has actually quite a number of verses. So here I'm just selecting some, and we will show some of these verses each week. So it starts with this. Gitaya Pushtakam Yatra Nitya Patascha Vartate Tatra Sarvani Tirtani Prayagadini Bhutale. So what I'm showing you here is, this is called Prayag. You know, in India, it's the name previously was Allahabad, and then it's also known as Prayag. And this is where the confluence of the 3 rivers. So Yamuna, Ganga, and Saraswati. So of course, Saraswati it's already gone underground. It's no longer flowing above ground in nowadays. But the Ganga and the Yamuna, so you can see the one which is in dark color is the Yamuna, and the one which is muddy a little, it's Ganga. So they join here. This is where usually Kumbh Mela takes place, and it's a very nice pilgrimage spot. So it's, the verse here says, all the holy places in this universe, such as Prayag, this one, the picture I'm showing you, Prayag, are eternally present wherever the Gita, the eternal book of divine song, is present. So this is a glorification of the importance of the Bhagavad Gita. Okay. So we begin again by this, chanting this prayer 3 times. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So let's recap a little of all the various chapters that we have gone through. So we are now going to chapter 8. So let's step back a little and try to understand the main points which were being presented. Okay, so we were talking about basically chapters 3, 4, 5, 6. They are all talking about yoga. The ladder, we can say the yoga ladder, right, or the way towards transcendence. So when we talk about yoga, yoga is different from karma kanda. Karma kanda means fruitive activities. So fruitive activities is like, we do things to get gain. We want some, we ask for something where we want good education or a good family, material gains. That is karma kanda. So it's basically within the material, the rewards are within the material sphere. So when we say yoga, we are talking about the path which leads to transcendence of the cycle of birth and death and to reunite. Yoga means to connect with the Supreme. So we heard in the beginning how Krishna was telling there are two ways, two paths to this yoga. So we know that there is one path which is called the Jnana Path. There are few names to it. Generally, it's called the Jnana or Jnana Path, right? And it's also called Sankhya Path, mentioned especially in the Bhagavad Gita. And in other places, it's been known as the path of light, because you are using light to shine the darkness. So therefore, the Jnana Path. And here, we also have the other path, which is the Bhakti Path, the Pushti Marga, the way of surrender. So this is Jnana, which is not the way of surrender, which is the way of, getting understanding on our own effort, on the strength of our own effort. Whereas Bhakti is simply by surrender process to the Lord. So it begins, if you talk about Jnana, let's talk about Jnana Path first. So Karma Yoga is the first. So what is Karma Yoga? Basically, we do our duty without being attached to the fruits, simply as a matter of duty. So that is Karma Yoga. So in performing in Karma Yoga this way, we get purified slowly, we develop the idea of sacrifice, we learn detachment slowly, and then we come to the level of, eventually, we come to a level where we can really work in a consciousness that we are not looking for the fruits, simply as a matter of sacrifice. Now, this Karma Yoga, if you look at the Bhakti path, the same type of Karma Yoga is also seen in the Bhakti path. So from this process of Karma Yoga, a person may start either in Jnana or in Bhakti, but we are talking about Jnana. So from Jnana, from Karma Yoga, he may go to the Bhakti path because it's very close. Here, we act as a matter of duty, whereas in Bhakti, we do it for the pleasure of the Lord. So that's the difference. And now, again, talking about the Karma Yogi, once the Karma Yogi comes to this level, then he is elevated and knowledge is developed. So he becomes eligible at that point to understand transcendental knowledge. So this becomes a Jnana Yogi. So what is this Jnana Yogi? So at this point, he reads he dedicates his life. After going through Karma Yoga, he now completely dedicates his life towards study. He no longer does any other duties. He searches everywhere in his experience and in his scripture to understand how to get out from this material entanglement, how to connect to the Supreme. So in this way, and after this study, what does he do? He understands that there is a path which is called meditation, dhyana. So as he is understanding this, he comes to the realization that he is the self. So here's a verse which mentions this: taking pleasure in the self, who is illumined in the self, who rejoices in and is satisfied with the self, fully satiated. For him, there is no duty. So this is a realized person who has understood that he is the self, right? And that's just by dint of knowledge. So there's no practicality yet. It is simply theoretical understanding. And he has come to that platform where he knows that he's spirit self, and he tries to act in that way. So this is, and therefore, because there is no more duty at this point, because here, once he has understood this concept, he is actually no longer having any karma. So the karma which he is going through, it is simply to clear away only, and he's not getting any new karma. So at that point, it stops. So you could say that he is liberated, right? But this is called the path of inaction. So understanding this, he now goes deeper. He now applies his theoretical knowledge to practical. So, but it's no longer doing duties. So therefore, this is called the path of inaction. But at the same time, Krishna, he recommends that one do not take this particular approach of not doing any duty. So because, you know, he says we should set an example for society to follow. Otherwise, everybody will follow this direction and nobody will be doing their duties, and society will be brought into chaos, because not everybody is able to come to this level of renunciation of Jnana Yoga. People may prematurely take this up, and then they will become cheaters, Falgu Vairagya. So to avoid this, Krishna says, the learned may similarly act by performing their duties without attachment to the results. So this is the better way. So if you are learned, if you're a jnani, that's fine, continue your duty, but act without attachment to the result. So therefore, he's suggesting to take the bhakti path also eventually. But anyway, from Jnana Yoga, one can also move to bhakti. At this stage, one can understand that he's the self, and if he's fortunate, he may get the understanding about the Supreme Lord's personality, about his pastimes and Leela. And in this way, he may be attracted towards the bhakti and he may come here. So in Gita 5.5, Krishna says, one who knows that the position reached by means of analytical study, which is a Sankhya path, can also be attained by devotional service, sees things as they are. So once the jnani knows this, he may choose the bhakti path, because he realizes, right? Krishna says in 4.9, one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again, but attains my abode. So the jnani knows, okay, this is a valid path which I can take. So then he may switch to bhakti. Because ultimately, the recommendation is, you know, Bhaktaram Yajna Tapasham, one who knows that I am the benefiter of all sacrifices, of all austerities, and I am the Lord of all planets, right? And I am the well-wisher of all living entities. And in this way, one attains peace. So therefore, this is the jnani who wants to become the bhakti yogi, then he may switch. But let's say if he doesn't switch. But anyway, at this jnani point, at the jnana yoga point, one is already considered Brahman realized. So this is the understanding. At this point, when one develops this knowledge about the self, he is considered Brahman realized. He will relish the eternity of the Brahman. That is if he leaves the body at that time. And here Krishna says, for one who is a neophyte in the eightfold yoga system. So the jnani, though he has attained perfection as Brahman realized, but he is still not completed his journey. So Krishna says, work is said, for one who is neophyte, right? Work is said to be the means. This is talking about the Sankhya. Krishna is talking about the Sankhya path here. So the neophyte, that means the beginner in the Sankhya path, he does work. And then later on, he renounces work, right? And when he renounces work, what does he do? He takes up dhyana yoga, meditation. So then Krishna tells about meditation. When one's intelligence, mind, faith, and refuge are all fixed in the Supreme, then one becomes fully cleansed, right? And then he proceeds on the path towards liberation. So that path, he continues, either he shifts to bhakti or he goes further into jnana. This is the searching path. So from karma, he gets knowledge, and from knowledge, theoretical understanding and knowledge, he wants to search for the source of that eternity. He has understood Brahman. Now he wants to know the source of that Brahman. So he goes searching deeper. Where does he search? He searches within, because he has got the information that there is divinity within himself, that there is divinity in every living entity. So therefore, he inverts his senses. He takes his senses and brings them inside. He inverts them and starts searching within. So, you know, the yam, niyam, asana, pranayama, just to prepare his body and mind. And after that, pratyahara, inverts his senses. Then after that, dharana, concentration. And then after that, dhyana, meditation. And finally, he achieves samadhi. And at that time, he really sees that Paramatma within himself. And after all this long search, he has discovered Paramatma, right? So in that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness, realized through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth. And upon gaining this, sometimes he may think that there is nothing greater to gain, because he has seen the Paramatma in his heart and he is completely satisfied. He's already in a very joyous state. He's already liberated. And he may think that this is the all in all, Paramatma, right? But at the same time, he also may be very fortunate. So if he's very fortunate to come in contact with a pure devotee or in contact with the Lord, then he may switch also to bhakti, because this is not yet the highest realization, Paramatma. He has to come to the bhakti path. Later in this chapter, I will tell you why. So in 647, Krishna says, and of all yogis, the one with great faith who always abides in me, thinks of me, and renders service, loving service to me, he is the highest of yogis. So that's why Krishna says Paramatma realization is not the last word yet. He has to complete the journey. He's not yet completed even at Dhyana Yoga stage. So he has at this point, he can naturally switch to bhakti. Previously, he may not be so inclined, but once he has seen Paramatma as that goal in his heart, he will naturally switch to bhakti at that point. So the personality of Godhead, Krishna, he says, between the two paths, the Jnana path and the Bhakti path, he says, work in devotional service is better to take the Bhakti path. Then he says, intelligent persons who are endeavoring for liberation from old age, death, they take refuge in me in devotional service. So this is the more intelligent path. In many places is already mentioned, and especially in Kali Yuga also I've mentioned, the Yuga Dharma is devotional service. It is this Jnana Yoga, it is meant for a previous age. And it's not very practical for people. And Arjuna also has agreed, yes, it's not practical what you're telling me. So can you tell me something further? So that was chapter 6 he mentioned. And chapter 7, Krishna started to reveal about bhakti. He started to speak more and more about himself and establish the beginning of bhakti yoga clearly. So in chapter 2 itself, Krishna gave this indication. You know, this is a preview chapter. It gives preview of everything. So in 251, he says, by thus engaging in devotional service to the Lord, great sages or devotees free themselves from the result of work in the material world. So this is the secret. If we want to free ourselves completely, right? So the idea is, it's like, you know, when somebody is liberated, like in Jnana Yoga stage, one becomes Brahman realized. At Brahman realization, it's like as if we become free from prison. You know, if let's say this world is a prison, for example, if somebody is in prison, when finally they are freed, no longer affected by the different things in prison, so he's like free, you know. So that's like Brahman realization. But he is aimless in life. A person who is freed from prison, he may not know what to do. He could be, you know, okay, I don't know what to do. I can do this, I can start a business, or I can start a family, I could do this, I could do that. But he doesn't know a clear aim in life. Whereas the Paramatma realized person, he knows, okay, I have realized Paramatma, so there is this direction I need to go towards the Lord. Whereas once you understand that there is a Lord, what then? There is the Lord, I've seen him, I have realized him, I am free now. What do I do now? So it's not complete until that relationship is established. So that's why it's yoga to connect or to join. And what is this joining? This is called sambandha or relationship. So to reignite that relationship between the jiva and the Paramatma or the Supreme Lord. So that's why devotional service and that reignition, that relationship between the jiva and the Lord is devotional service, loving devotional service. And in this way, they become permanently freed from this cycle of birth and death. And what do they get? They attain the state beyond all miseries. So later on in chapter 8, in this chapter, we are going to talk about chapter 8. He will reveal where is this state? What is this state beyond all miseries? So then we will, that was the Jnana path. So in the Bhakti path, right? We have Bhakti at each of these stages. Actually, the entire thing is Bhakti, but we have different stages of Bhakti. The beginning of Bhakti is called Sadhana Bhakti or Bhakti in practice. So one is trying to perform Bhakti, practice. So therefore, they aim towards doing everything for the sake of the Lord, you know, sacrificing whatever for the sake of the Lord, the fruits of the results. And then they also perform sadhana. Sadhana means daily activities like chanting Hare Krishna, reading Bhagavad Gita daily, right? Following the regulative principles like no meat eating, no intoxication, no illicit sexual activity, no gambling. So in this way, try to lead a sin-free life while at the same time reviving the devotional practices. So this is called Sadhana Bhakti. More details of this will be given in later chapters, especially chapter 12. So once a person is established in Sadhana Bhakti, what is his result? He'll come to this level. Therefore, O Arjuna, surrendering all your works unto me, with full knowledge of me, without desires for profit, with no claims to proprietorship, and free from lethargy, he will serve the Lord. So this is a more dedicated person, and they will dedicate their activities in this manner. And then in this way, they get more and more understanding about the Supreme Lord, and they develop their faith. Their faith becomes stronger, and they come to this level of Bhava Bhakti. This is called Bhakti in liberation. So one attains liberation, which is in the same level of Brahman realization of Jnana. But though it is Brahman realization, the difference here is the Jnana yogi doesn't know what else to do after that. He knows that he has to meditate further to look for that personality. He hasn't found that personality yet. Whereas in Bhakti, they know who is the goal in the end. So their focus is straight, easy for them to further advance. So in Bhava Bhakti, so at this stage, Brahman realization is attained. And further, they will develop themselves into deeper Bhava Bhakti. Bhava Bhakti itself, there are levels also. So at that stage, they become very attached and completely, they cannot live without understanding about, they cannot live without the service of the Supreme Lord. So they become very attached. And at this stage, they already know about Paramatma because their goal is the source of that Paramatma. And in this way, eventually, only the Bhakti Yogi, he can go to the topmost level by developing Prema Bhakti. Prema Bhakti is the last word of Bhakti. This is Prema, is pure love, not even a tinge of anything material. It is pure self-sacrificing love. An example of a pale, shadowy example of Prema Bhakti in this material world. There is actually, it's not easy to, the only palest shadow we can find is the love the mother will have for her child. So this is, just like how the mother is willing to sacrifice a lot of things for the sake of a child, the love that she has, right? In the beginning, there's no expectation. There is no, simply, as soon as the child is born, right? Not much expectations or whatever. Even if the child is not good looking or whatever it is, the mother is always very attached to the child. So that is an example of the Prema Bhakti. Just a very, it's not Prema Bhakti, it's material still. So this Prema Bhakti is million times more concentrated, and it's entirely spiritual. And this Prema Bhakti is what will give us the ticket to go back to Godhead, to understand Bhagavan. So 618, he who is situated in knowledge of me, so this is Prema Bhakti, considered to be just like my own self, being engaged in my transcendental service, he is sure to attain me, the highest and most perfect goal. So therefore, he establishes Bhagavan realization as the topmost. So we covered this, the 3 different realizations in chapter 7 yesterday. So therefore, just a quick recap of chapter 7 also. We talked about knowing God in full, the Bhagavan realization, which is the last word in yoga, and how it is so rare. Not many people understand these concepts and able to achieve this level, but it can be done. And in fact, there are many who have done it. And even if they don't achieve it, no harm, no loss, in fact, everything to gain. They simply continue in their next birth and things like that. But that's the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Srila Prabhupada. They have given many ways on which we can practice this seriously and try to achieve this even within this life. Srila Prabhupada likes to tell us, make this your last life. Try to achieve the Lord within this life. And then Krishna talks about himself, because that's the goal of ultimate realization. So therefore, he talks about himself as the cause of everything, as the ultimate controller. He talks about his energies briefly. No truth superior to me. He establishes this clearly so that there are no confusion. And then he starts giving analogies of the Supreme. He will say, I'm the taste in water, I'm the heat in fire, I'm the light of the sun, I'm the light of the moon, right? And he also mentions that I am that sex life according to Dharma. So which we mentioned yesterday also. And then we can read the full list of analogy in this chapter. Then he talks about how he is the master of the 3 modes. And then he speaks about those people who can know Krishna and those people who cannot know Krishna. So there were 4 types who could know Krishna and the 4 types who cannot know Krishna. So if you remember, the types that cannot come towards Krishna, the Maya Paharta Jnana, the Muddha, the what else? The Naradama and the Ashura Bhava, those who are atheistic and demonic in nature. So like that, and then those who do attain Krishna, who are the 4 types who attain Krishna? If you remember, one is those who are in distress. The second one is the Artharthi, those who are in distress. The second one is those who are looking for, those who are inquisitive. The Jignani, the Jignasa. Third is those who are looking for wealth, Artharthi. And the 4th is the Nyani, one who is serious in understanding the Supreme. So in this way, he concludes chapter 7. After laying the foundation of who is eligible to understand and who is not, after laying out the outcome, when we teach something, we sometimes say outcome of this lesson. So he laid the outcome also. And then he established that this lesson is the topmost lesson, the Bhakti path. So in this way, he completed chapter 7. And the key takeaways were knowing Krishna is the last word in yoga, and how Krishna is the supreme personality, and how every cause, he's the cause of all causes. And as I mentioned, who can and cannot know Krishna. So today we will speak on chapter 8. So the next progress in the progression of the chapter, the next natural topic would be how to attain the Supreme. So we already spoke about the Nyani Path, verses, chapters 3, 4, 5. And while speaking about the Nyani Path, Krishna gave many hints about the Bhakti path. But from chapter 7, he started opening up the lesson on Bhakti. And in chapter 8, he's going to give more instructions on how to attain the Supreme Lord, right? And he will now, while talking mainly about Bhakti, he will also talk a little bit about the Jnana, those who are doing the Dhyana Yoga and all that, a little. So this is called Akshara Brahma Yoga, attaining the Supreme. So it starts off, I'd like to start off with the last verse of chapter 7. So chapter 7 ends in this way. Those in full consciousness of me, who know me, the Supreme Lord, to be the governing principle of material manifestation, of the Devatas and of all methods of sacrifice, can understand and know me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even at the time of death. So there are a few things he mentions here. He mentions about material manifestation. He mentions about Devatas, demigods, and he mentions about sacrifice. He mentions about attaining him, and he talks about the time of death. So the time of death is very key, important point. So picking up on this from the previous chapter, Arjuna will begin by asking the same points. He will ask these same things. What is this governing principle of material manifestation? What are the devatas? What is sacrifice, and all that he will ask. So it begins with Arjuna's question in verses 8.1 to 8.4. So what does he ask? He will ask, first of all, Kim Tat Brahma? What is the living entity? Sorry, he asks, what is Brahman? Right, the living entity is part, and the answer Krishna will give is that Brahman is the living entity, spirit. And then he will ask, what is the nature of this living entity, Adi Atman? So basically, what is this Adi Atman? So Krishna will say, this the eternity is the nature of that Adi Atman. So what is Brahma? The living entity is Brahman. And what is the nature of that Brahman or the living entity? The nature of that is eternity. They are eternal. So that was already very clearly established in chapter 2. But here he's talking clearly about Brahman. So he's defining that particular term. So why this question is important? Because now we are talking about attaining the Supreme. But then we may ask, talking about attaining the Supreme, but why are we here in the first place? Anyone has an answer to that question? Why are we here in the first place? Want to give a go? Has anyone thought this question before or come across a satisfactory answer wherever they have heard? So most religions will not be able to answer this very well. You will find that, in Abrahamic religions and also in other places. So even in Hinduism, some people will say, like those people who are like the Brahmavadis or the Mayavadis, they will say, oh, we are all Brahman, and then suddenly one day we fell into illusion, but they can't explain why. So that's because they don't accept certain parts. They don't accept certain aspects of the Gita, or they don't accept certain sections of the scripture. So they do not understand this concept because they would like to, curve fit whatever they understand to fit a particular premeditated philosophy. So that is not scientific, because when one is searching for the truth, one has to have an open mind. So there should not be any preconceived notion or prejudices. It should be open and based entirely on logic. So anyway, if there are no answers from anyone, okay, so then the understanding is like this. You can also ask a question, you know, why do we have children? Why do we bother to have children? So to answer this first question, why we are here, I would like to ask another question. That question is, why do we have children? So many of us are family members, right? We all have families. Like I'm also married. I have 2 children. So like that. So why do we have children? Anyone wants to say?
To appreciate what sacrifice is all about.
Okay. Sacrifice. Okay. To appreciate sacrifice. Yes, very important. So you're saying that you want the child to appreciate our sacrifice. Is that it?
No, we understand what sacrifice is.
Okay.
Is a parent.
Okay. So it's for our growth. So you're saying it's for our growth. So to understand the aspect of sacrifice, we have children. Okay. All right. Anything else? Anybody else wants to say? That's a valid point, certainly. Usually when a couple is first newly married, they get married, you know, they want to have children so much. I don't think most of the time that was their idea. That sacrifice comes along eventually, right? While we take care of the children and we raise them, we understand the value of sacrifice. But very few people would begin their marriage life and say, I want to have children because I want to learn sacrifice. So therefore I want to have children. That will not be their way of thinking, isn't it? So most of the time, what they will think is because they want to share their love, right? Why do we have children? It's because we want to have more people, but with which we can share that love. Correct? We have love to give, and we want to share it with the others, parents, father, mother. That particular love between the father and the mother, they want to share it with the child and to continue with it. They want to have a relationship with the child. They want to see a loving relationship and reciprocation. They want to give and they want to receive that loving reciprocation with the child. So with this hope, they like to have children. So in the same way, the Lord is also doing the same thing. So the Lord is Purusha, ultimate enjoyer, right? He is known as Purusha, and we are Prakriti, energy to be enjoyed. So therefore, there is energy, the what do you call, the master of the energy and the energy, which is for the pleasure of the master of the energy. So in the same way, the Lord has living entities, Jivatma. So these Jivatmas, there are uncountable, innumerable, and the Lord is Vibhu. So, and because he is Vibhu, he has that capability to have a relationship with each and every one of those souls. We are limited. So we can have 3 children, 5 children, even, and we could have a relationship. If we have more than 15 children, we might not even remember their names. Even with 3 children, we might not remember their birthdays, what they are going through. And with 15 children, to remember their birthdays will be a challenge, to understand each and every concept of it. But that's not the case with the Lord, because he is unlimited. And he can have a relationship with each and every jiva. So therefore, living entities are part and parcel, just like the child is considered part and parcel of the parent, right? In fact, sometimes the child will have the same face, the same nose, the same eyes, sometimes even talk the same way. So therefore, part and parcel, but not the same. The child doesn't merge with the father, right? The father is the father, the child is the child. So in the same way, the Lord wants to relish this relationship with the jivas, the living entities. And when we talk about relationship, the key word here is love, right? Love. And this love, what is the hallmark of love in any relationship? What do you think is the most, I mean, there are many aspects of love, like just now Prabhu said, sacrifice. Yes, love is about sacrifice, right? That is one definitely important thing. But there's another key point here, which I'm looking for to connect to the point that I'm making here. Love has a very important aspect. The question I would like to ask you is, can love be forced? In order to develop love, can it be forced in any way? So obviously, we all know the answer is a rhetoric question. So love can only exist when there is freedom of will, right? If one can control like if somebody gives you a love potion, and then they drink that love potion, and then suddenly they say, oh, you are my sun, you are my light, you are my cloud, you are everything. And then, but you know, deep inside, you can enjoy the lust, you can enjoy the gain you may get materially, but deep in the heart, you will know that it is not real. Just like how a rich person may sometimes have a relationship with various people, but deep inside, he remains insecure because he doesn't know whether the person is in love with him or professes to be in love with him because of him or because of the facilities that they are getting in relationship with him. So, you know, so do you want the kingdom of God or do you want God? So many people, they want the kingdom of God, but they don't want God. That's why everybody worships Lakshmi, but they don't want to worship Vishnu. And Lakshmi will never stay where Vishnu, her husband, is not glorified. So anyway, Lakshmi is also for Vishnu only. So, but the idea is, people in general, they are very interested when Lakshmi is mentioned, the kingdom of God, the energy of the Lord, but they want to they want to kill God and just remain in the kingdom. This is sometimes the problem. So anyway, I was coming and saying love can only exist when there is freedom of will. So therefore, the Lord's motive here is he wants to develop love between a loving relationship with the jivas. And therefore, he never interferes in the freedom of will of the jivas. That is his covenant. That is his nature. He never interferes. And therefore, he gives the jivas choice. Now, these jivas, they are innumerable. The jivas, when they see such a personality, when they see God in his glory, in his majesty, in his greatness, in his opulence, when they see God, there are two things that they can think about. Of course, these souls, when they are with God, they are already liberated. They are not covered by Maya. They are not covered by ignorance. They are not covered by any kind of situation. You know, it's nothing to do with Maya, because there's no Maya when Lord is there. So when these living entities see the Lord, right, they remain there. There are two things they can do. Just like the child, when the child is born and eventually grows up, and then when he grows up, he sees the father and the mother as very nice, very great, very, very wonderful. There are two things he can do. One is he can, technically Sanskrit, it's called prema. One is he can develop prema towards the Lord. What is this? He can decide that he can love and serve the Lord. This person who is, I am part and parcel of, who is so wonderful, who is so great, who is so sweet, who is so, you know, everything about the Lord is sweet. Everything about his activities are wonderful. And the most merciful Lord. So after seeing this, they may decide, I think I am just so in love with this person that I just want to only serve this person. So they may develop this nature, prema. And, it comes from bhakti. And when they develop this nature, then no problem. They are happy to stay with the Lord and assist the Lord in all his activities, which are innumerable, which are unlimited, and which are ever increasing, and which are full of ananda, bliss. So in this way, they partake in the bliss, the ananda nature of the Lord. They are already sat, eternal. They are already chit, cognizant of themselves and the relationship with the Lord, because they've understood prema. And as a result, they are able to experience ananda, bliss, by service to the Lord. And when we say service here, it is nothing like the material understanding of service. So we already saw an example of how Krishna, though he's the master, how he is so, how he is, the relationship between master and servant is very, very sweet. And there are various ways, various flavors of this relationship. One can serve the Lord as a servant. One can serve the Lord as a parent. One can serve the Lord as his wife, or his, friends, or his relationships with the gopis. These are all various ways one can serve the Lord. Different flavors according to the propensity of the person. Or one can just serve the person in awe and reverence from a distance, right? According to their propensity. Now, that's the first thing, how the jiva can see. But the other way, if the jiva sees the Lord so opulent, so wonderful, now ask that question amongst all ourselves, right? When we see somebody very great, let's say we go to school, we see someone, a classmate who's very great, or we see someone, we go to work, someone else, a colleague who is much better than us in every way, right? And we see someone that wonderful, we may, the jivas may develop what is called kama. Kama means lust. And the seed of this lust is, this kama doesn't exist in the spiritual world. This kama is not there yet, right? But the seed which blossoms into kama or lust is developed in the heart of this jiva. The jiva will feel envy, matsarya. This is called envy. He may feel, wow, so wonderful. The Lord is so great, so powerful. His energies are wonderful. He is so sweet. I wish I also want to be like that. So there's some kind of envy. It's all right to be like the Lord, but there is a little trace of negativity, envy. They also want to. So this envy has this idea of icha, which desire. The root is icha, and envy is the root, and from there icha comes. Icha is desire, the seed of desire. What kind of desire? The desire that I also want to be the Lord. I also want to hold dominion. So you can see the difference. The first one is about bhakti, about service, whereas the second one is about lordship. It's not about service. It's not that I want to serve this personality. I want to, if only I had this. That is the idea behind it. So this freedom of choice, the Lord doesn't interfere. He gives that choice for this jiva. He doesn't force the jiva to come into bhakti. He doesn't force the jiva to fall in love with the Lord. Everything is there. It's up to him to decide. So the problem now here is, now for these persons who are bhakti, their followers, they have developed bhakti and they have developed prema. This is natural environment for them to be with the Lord. The Lord has two types of energy. So one is called Antaranga Shakti, which is the Antaranga means the internal energy of the Lord. So that actually the Lord has innumerable energies, but it can be categorized into these two, Antaranga Shakti, and the other one is called Bahiranga Shakti. Later I will show. So this Antaranga Shakti is fully spiritual. Actually, both Shaktis are spiritual, but this Shakti is entirely all about all about service to the Lord. It's centered around the Lord directly. And it's basically serving the Lord everywhere, in every direction. It's centered around the Lord and serving the Lord in every direction. And those jivas who are in Prema Bhakti, they are in natural environment of Antaranga Shakti. There is no conflict, because Antaranga Shakti is to serve the Lord. They are also serving the Lord, right? The details of these Shaktis we will talk in detail in level 2. So here I'm just mentioning how they are in
Excuse
natural.
me, Prabhu.
Yes.
So sorry to interrupt,
No
Prabhu.
problem.
Just a question here, the part where you say love and service for bhakti.
Okay.
Now that love, has it got to be unconditional love?
Yes, it has to be unconditional love.
But
That
if
is-
the love and the service is with the intent of reaching the ultimate, then isn't that conditional?
Yes, in the beginning it is conditional. That's why we have Sadhana Bhakti, and then eventually it will lead to Ananya Bhakti. Ananya means unconditional. So it's a practice. It's just like when we want to learn to love somebody, we begin by, like arranged marriage is like that. I'm not saying that it's like unconditional love. I'm saying at least, it begins by getting to know each other, and then slowly, and then like that, eventually they will become attached. So there is an entire steps of bhakti, that there are 9 stages of bhakti. So stage by stage, it will go until, and this is also with the help of the Lord. The Lord wants to help us. So therefore, while taking this process of bhakti, we begin with condition. We are called conditioned souls. So therefore, we are conditioned in our love. But as it progresses, it will get purified, and we will reach this stage. Okay, Prabhuji?
Thank you, bro.
Okay, all right. So more of that later on. We will discuss these aspects in detail in the various stages of bhakti. We won't talk about it in level 1. These stages of bhakti are not described in Bhagavad Gita, but they are described in other places. Basically it's an entire science, how to develop step by step. Just like, dhyana, meditation is also a science. So therefore, we went through that a little. In bhakti, it is also a science, how to do this. So as I was saying, right, Antaranga Shakti and Prema Bhakti, this is compatible. Now, what about these jivas who have this icha for dominion, this desire for dominion? So they cannot exist in this Antaranga Shakti, because everything is centered about the Lord. So then what to do? So the Lord is the Lord of everything. So therefore he knows, okay, you have this desire, I'm not going to force you, no problem. So therefore, and I'm the Lord of everything. So what the Lord does is, he produces another place just for these jivas. So therefore, and what does he use to develop this other place? He has, as I mentioned, he has Antaranga Shakti. This Antaranga Shakti has a shadow. And the shadow of this Antaranga Shakti is called Bahiranga Shakti. So it's a shadow of the Antaranga Shakti. And this shadow of this Antaranga Shakti is what is used to create this material world. So that's the difference between matter and spirit. Bahiranga Shakti itself is spiritual. It is part of the spiritual Lord's energy, but it's a shadow of the Antaranga Shakti. And in here, there is a possibility to create, where everything is not centered around the Lord, where the jivas can actually come here, and they can try to hold dominion over everything. So this is the realm for them to do it. So this is how it happens. More details of how it happens in chapter 13 and all that. Later on, we will hear how it happens. Okay. So now that we know why we are here, so therefore this jiva, they have this icha. So all of us here in this material creation, we have had this problem. We are the other types. We had icha for dominion, desire for lording over things, desire to have the lordship. So in order to have lordship, there must be other entities also. So therefore, all of these other entities who fall into this category are kept within this material creation. And After that, Krishna will ask, so this material creation is created. So for the sake of these living entities, this material creation is created. This is the material world, and it's extremely wondrous. It is created by the Lord's energy only. So then Arjuna will ask, after asking these two questions, he will ask, what is karma? Kim karma? And to that, the Lord answers, it is the action pertaining to the development of the material body. So so what happens is this living entity, they will, once they enter into this material world, there are certain, because the nature of this Bahiranga Shakti is such, it's a shadow, right? And the Lord wants it that way also, because he can see, yes, you don't want me, okay, you want to go and enjoy, okay, you go and enjoy, but you know, it's not going to be a good place. It's going to be good. You will get what you want. You want to enjoy, you want to have lordship and everything, all this will be there. But slowly, the nature of this material world is continuous degradation. You know, just like everything in this world, when we take something which is made of iron doesn't last, isn't it? Initially, it's bright, shiny, and then after that, slowly it becomes corroded. So corrosion takes place. So this is the nature of this material creation. It's deliberately made that way, right? Because the Lord wants to bring us back. He puts the jivas here with the hope that they will enjoy their desires, they will get their desires fulfilled, and eventually they will get frustrated out of it. And then the Lord will present this process, this path of bhakti, so that these people who are in this situation, they can take up this process, purify themselves, come to the level of Prema Bhakti, and then in this way go back to the Lord and have a relationship with the Lord, which is what the Lord wants. So this material creation is part of that plan. It is like a correction facility. While at the same time, though it's a correction facility, it's a first-class correction facility. It is, you know, just like in a prison also, they may have first-class prison, second-class prison, third-class prison. So the first-class prison is like the higher planetary systems, where you can, you know, like Indra, you can be the Lord of heaven. And still, they are not entirely happy also, because there are still demons attacking them and things like that. So there is still birth, death, disease, and old age and all that, but very minimal. So, and then there is second-class prison and there is third-class prison. So these are some of the aspects of the material creation. More of this later on, we will talk about all that. I think I'm spending too much time on this point. Okay. So therefore, then he will ask, what is this karma? So what happens is, when the living entities enters into this material creation, just like this girl here, she's in wonder about everything. So she sees the butterfly. So other living entities are also here. She's not the only one. So all the other living entities who are like-minded, they have come here to enjoy and lord over matter in this material creation by the grace of the Lord. So while they are doing this, some of them might accidentally step over another person. It's like while she's running, she may step over a caterpillar, another person may do something, one person may simply throw a twig in the sky and laugh in happiness, but she doesn't know that the twig may fall and hit another person on the head somewhere else. So in this way, they get trapped by the network of activities, karma. So karma traps them here while they are in this situation. They forget. And why this material world also? So the nature of this, just now I was mentioning that the Bahiranga Shakti, while the nature of Antaranga Shakti is cognizance, everything is about God. Everybody knows the Lord, right? This is knowledge, cognizance. This is the nature of the Antaranga Shakti. Everything is centered around Krishna. The opposite is the shadow, Bahiranga Shakti. While Antaranga Shakti reveals the Lord, Bahiranga Shakti covers the Lord. So therefore, in order for these living entities to enjoy happily, to think that they are the masters and they are the lords, they need to essentially forget Krishna. How is it possible to be the master when you know the Lord is so much more greater? It's always poisoned, isn't it? The way they want to enjoy. So for that essence is made to forget. So this is the nature of Bahiranga Shakti. It's also called Maya Shakti. So Maya is called illusion, and illusion works to put everyone into forgetfulness of the Lord. This is in line with the desire of the jiva, because the jiva wanted to enjoy and take lordship. So to satisfy this desire, the Lord arranges it such. It is necessary for them to be in illusion or forgetfulness of the Lord. So then Adi Bhutam Chakim, then Arjuna will ask, what is the physical nature? So she's now asking about this material creation. What is this physical nature, which is, so Krishna answers that what is Adi Bhutam is that physical nature which is constantly changing. So this is the nature of this material creation also. So it is Ashashvatam. Ashashvatam means never the same. It is constantly changing from one form to another, to another, to another. So our situations in life also constantly changes. So that is the nature of this world. So then, who is the controllers of this world? Who are those people who arranges the situation? You know, how is this world controlled and everything? So Adi Daivam Kim, what is this? Who are the devas, the demigods? So then Krishna will answer, all the devatas, they are all representing me as the universal form, because the Lord doesn't want to reveal himself, because these people have wanted to be forgetful of the Lord. So therefore the devatas, who are the living entities who have come here to enjoy, they have taken these positions of devatas in the beginning. So we all have been one of these people in the beginning, but somehow we got caught by the net of karma and we have fallen down lower and lower. And like this, we travel up, down, up, down, up, down in different births, trying to lord it over matter and satisfy our desire, ignorant and forgetful of the relationship with the Supreme Lord. So does the Lord leave us like this? No. Actually, even in this world, the Lord has come with us. He has come as, you know, as Paramatma. He is with each and every living entity. He never left us alone. So just like a responsible parent, the parent will want to bring the child to a playground, the parent will also come with the child, you know? But the child doesn't know. So the parent is with us. So this is the Adi Daivam, the representation of all the devatas in the supreme universal form of the Lord. Krishna will reveal this form later in chapter 11. Arjuna will ask. So for now, I'm just mentioning. Here Krishna gives very short answers to this Arjuna's questions. He gives short answers and he will elaborate them further later on in other chapters. So then Arjuna will also ask, who is this Adi Yagya, the Lord of sacrifice, and where is he in the body? And Krishna will say, I am that Lord of sacrifice. So if you sacrifice everything to me, you will slowly revive your understanding about me. And I am not very far away. I am right with you in the heart of every embodied being, or the region of the heart. So this we already heard previously. So a lot of topics we have already heard before in previous chapters. So now we are just consolidating all of them. Arjuna is consolidating them. And we are now coming into more and more deeper matters on how to follow this bhakti process. So Krishna will ask, Arjuna will ask Krishna, so how does this living entity who has come here attain you? How do we go back to you? How do we understand you? So now Krishna is going to reveal, especially because earlier he mentioned at the time of death. So here the key of going back is death. So death is a very important, it's the most important point of our existence in each of our lives. So death is the key. And as I mentioned, the Lord comes with us. He is Paramatma, just like there are two birds in the tree. So the Lord is there with us. How can we be engaged with you? How can we know? So the moment transcendental knowledge is given to this bird, the bird which is busy enjoying the fruits of the tree, the moment the bird turns and looks at the Paramatma, looks at the Supreme Lord, which is also there, so that is the time when his journey back home begins. So we hope that all of us also are in that journey in different levels. So how to attain Krishna at death? So Krishna will begin chapter 8. So that's why it's called Brahma Akshara Yoga, this chapter. How to attain the Supreme. Very nice chapter. So Krishna says, Antakale Mam. This is a very important verse. We can memorize this verse also. I'll just say it. Antakale cha mam eva smaran muktva kalevaram ya prayati samadbhavam yati nasti atra samsayah. And whoever at the end of his life quits his body, remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this, there is no doubt. So the key here is, what are we thinking of when we die? That is the very important point here. It's mentioned a few places. So is that really a rule, right? Whatever we remember at the time of death. So it is a rule. First, we will give an example. Here, I've put this example picture of Bhishma Dev. Now, Bhishma Dev, he had the boon of Ichya Mrityu. His father blessed him with Ichya Mrityu boon. What is that boon? That means he can choose when he wants to die. No one can kill him unless he wants to die. That is such a boon, right? So, and indeed, the Pandavas could not kill Bhishma. They could not defeat Bhishma. And in fact, Yudhishthira finally went and asked Bhishma, how can we defeat you? Please let us know. And they knew that Bhishma will tell them, because Bhishma was righteous. They knew Bhishma didn't want to fight in this war. He had no choice. And in such a situation, Bhishma said, yes, I will tell you how to kill me. So like that, and anyway, that's Mahabharata. So after they shot him and he was already on the bed of arrows, he could have died then, but he didn't want to die. He was in very much pain. Thousands of arrows were riddled through his body, but he was in pain and he was trying to control himself and waiting for the time when Lord Krishna would come and see him. He was waiting for the battle to end. So the battle of Mahabharata took 18 days, right? And Bhishma, I think, he was fighting for 10 days. And then on the 10th day, I think he was actually put in this situation. And after that, he was waiting. He wanted to wait. He wanted to wait until Lord Krishna comes and blesses him. So this is what he says. Bhishma, when Krishna finally came in front of Bhishma, this is what Bhishma Dev says. May my Lord, who is four-handed and whose beautifully decorated lotus face, with eyes as red as the rising sun, Aruna Lochanam. So he's describing, even in that situation, he's beautifully giving poetic words. Aruna Lochanam, eyes like the rising sun, smiling, Prahasan, kindly await me at that moment when I quit this material body. Because he wanted to remember the Lord when he dies. So therefore, Krishna gives the next verse in the Gita. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajati ante kalevaram tam tam evaiti kaunteya sada tad bhava bhavitaha. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. So just like, that's why saintly people, they try to leave the body in this way. We will, like how Bhishma tried to leave. So we want to remember the Lord at the time of death. So usually they will go to a holy place and or at least surrounded by devotees, surrounded by bhajans or whatever. So nowadays it's not so easy, but there are many devotees who have gone through this situation. In our movement itself, I've known so many people who have left their bodies in very wonderful situation, very pleasing. When they die, it's like you feel very blessed, very spiritual that you have been part of this. So and that is really very nice. So here it is true, right? And there are certain places in scripture where it is described, just like the fly. When the fly is being caught by the frog, the fly dies thinking that I'm going to be eaten by the frog. So he's so paralyzed by fear that he's only thinking of the frog, the frog, the frog, the frog, the frog. And in this way, he dies. And then in the next life, the fly becomes the frog. So in this way, there is evolution of consciousness from animal life. So animal life goes from, in Shiva Purana also, it is said, Puchai, Pulugai, Puchai, from Pambai, then like that, one by one, elevation of consciousness. Usually in funerals, they like to say this particular mantra. So this is what happens. And also there is a story in Srimad Bhagavatam, how there are many stories actually, how this particular person, this is Bharat Maharaj, where, India is known for Bharat Bhumi, and it's named after this person, Bharat Maharaj. And when he died, he thought of a deer. Why this happened was he actually gave up his kingdom and everything and went to the forest and to perform dhyana yoga. But at the time of death, somehow, before death, during his stay there was this deer that came, mother deer, and this mother deer was being chased by the tiger. And while being chased by the tiger, the mother deer was pregnant. It wanted to leap across a river to save itself. And while it leaped, because it was weak, it was pregnant, it leaped, and then at that time it delivered the baby deer. And the baby deer fell near the bank of the river in the water, and the mother also fell in the river in the water. And the mother was swept away quickly by the current, and the tiger somehow managed to look for the mother. But the baby deer, orphaned, was struggling in the water near the area where Bharat Maharaj was meditating. And then he went to save this baby deer. So after saving the baby deer, he realized the baby deer had no one to help him. So he took care of the baby deer. So then he will give leaves for the baby deer. And in this way, because he was alone, he developed affection for the baby deer. And then one day he was walking in the forest and he fell down in a hole. There was a hole, a ditch. And as he fell down, he was mortally wounded. He was about to leave his body. And the last thought that he had in his mind was, who is going to give the food for this baby deer? And in this way, he died. And in his next life, he became a deer. But because of his spiritual activities, the deer was blessed with memory of his past life. So in this way, he perfected the deer, continued his life. And then after that, he got another birth as a human being. Then in that birth, he perfected his life and went back to Godhead. He became a devotee, a bhakti yogi, and he went back to Godhead. So therefore, these stories are there. And therefore, yes, it's a rule. This is the aspect. Whatever one thinks at the time of death, that one attains. So it's very important. They say life is the preparation and death is the examination. So then Gita continues, 8.7. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yudhyacha mai arpita mano buddhir mam evaisyasi asamsaya. Therefore, Arjuna, Krishna advises, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, right? And he says, that's the goal. This is the goal of understanding. So that's why we like to always remember the Lord. So remembrance or smaranam is the key, right? Mam anusmara, smara. Smara means to remember. And at the same time, while remembering me, carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. So he's telling, in the beginning stage, try to remember me in various ways and do your duty. Don't be disturbed. So that's the beginner stage of bhakti. Sadhana Bhakti. Sorry, if I can just mute you, Mataji, please don't mind. Okay. So that's the beginner. Then he says, Mai arpita mano buddhir. With your activities dedicated to me, right? Then what do you do? This is called the bhakti process. Dedicate your activities. All our activities we dedicate for the Lord. We do sacrifice for the Lord. We do our families for the pleasure of the Lord. It's like a devotee has to work. Okay, bring the idea of the working is to ensure that we bring up our family in spiritual life, and then to also serve the Lord in his movement and in his mission, and to give this process to others. So in this way, we can do many things while we are engaged. So that's the bhakti process. And your mind and intelligence fixed on me. So this is the highest level. So slowly, step by step, we will come to this level. Don't worry, in later chapters, Krishna will give in detail these points, especially in chapter 12. He will culminate his instructions on bhakti yoga. So in this way, Krishna says, Mam evaisyasi asamsaya. You will attain me, Mam, me, without doubt. Asamsaya, right? That is what he says. So he outlines the basic setup of the bhakti process. So it doesn't require one to go to the forest and then become a dhyani yogi, maintain celibacy and all that, and so it's open for everybody. Householders, brahmacharis, sannyasis, everyone can take advantage of this path. That's why it's meant for all people in Kali Yuga, especially. And after that, he goes on. This is chapter verse 8:15. Mam upetya punarjanma dukkhalayam ashashvatam napnuvanti mahatmanaha samsiddhim paramam gataha. After attaining me, why do we want to attain the Lord? Right? You will attain me without a doubt. So Krishna is again reiterating why you want to come back to me, why not remain in this material world? So therefore he gives a reason. After attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world. Why they don't return? Because they have already developed bhakti. So they have already developed prema. And once they develop prema, only they can go back to Godhead, right? So now they are situated in the Antaranga Shakti of the Lord. So there is no reason for them to ever return. So because they have attained the highest perfection, the Lord says. So this is his plan to reclaim all those wayward jivas who have had this ichcha desire. And in this way, the Lord wants to again rekindle all of our relationships. So there is one scripture called the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, which speaks about how the journey of a person, of one particular person called Gopakumar, and how he went from various levels. He went searching for the Lord in different universes. He went to Swargaloka, he went to Indra, he went to Brahma, he went to Shiva, and then he went to different places. And ultimately he attained the highest. Then he went to Vaikunta, then he went to Ayodhya, then he went to Dwaraka, then he went to Mathura, and then ultimately he went to the highest spiritual place, which is Goloka Vrindavan, the forests of Vrindavan, where Krishna had his eternal pastimes. So that particular story is there. We can read, and over there we can also see how Krishna received this person after being lost in this material world for so long. When Krishna received this person, it was very moving. It's Krishna actually, the descriptions are very high level. So we will talk about it some other time. So the reception that this Gopakumar got was out of this world. And in this way, they rekindled back their relationship. So Krishna says here, note here, right, that they never return to this temporary world, which is full of miseries. It's called Dukkhalayam Ashashvatam. Dukkha Alayam. It's a place of miseries. Dukkha. Ashashvatam is temporary. This one I've already mentioned earlier, how everything keeps changing. There's nothing that remains the same. So if we think we are happy now, it's not all the time we will be happy, isn't it? As I said, happiness and distress comes and goes without us looking for it. So later on, we may not be happy. And then like that, it changes, it changes. So the same thing is true for all of them. So what kind of misery specifically Krishna is saying here, right? What kind of misery? The miseries are the miseries of, so Krishna will say in 8:16, A Brahma Bhuvana Lokaha Punar Avartino Arjuna Mam Upetya tu Kaunteya Punar Janma na Vidyati. So he says from the highest planet in the material world. So if this is the material creation, right? This is the material, this is one universe in the material creation. In material creation, there are many, many universes. Imagine the material creation to be like an ocean. And in this ocean, there are many bubbles. So one of these, each of these bubbles, if there are universes, so this is one bubble, and in one universe, right, we have one Brahma. So one Brahma, and then these are all the various planetary dimensions, which is described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Brahma Loka, Tapa Loka, Jana Loka, so 7 higher planetary systems, all the way up to Swarga Loka. And then Bhuvar Loka, and then Bhuloka. This Bhuloka is where Earth is situated. It's in the dimension of Bhuloka. And right in the center. And then below Bhuloka are lower planetary systems called subterranean heaven, which is called the Bilva Swarga. So like that, from the topmost and then all the way to the bottom below Patala Loka is where the hellish planets are. So from the topmost Brahma Loka all the way to the lowest planet, Brahma Bhuvana Loka, from the highest planet in the material world. So Brahma Loka is within the material world. All this is within the material world. Down to the lowest, all are places of misery where repeated birth and death takes place. So even Brahma is not eternal. So this is described later on also. And in this way, there are different places. The Devatas are all also here in Swarga Loka, but they are not eternal. Birth and death takes place. But one who attains to my abode, O Kunti, never takes birth again. So that is one advantage. No more Janma, Mrityu, birth and death. No more Jara and Vyadi, old age and disease. And no more Adi Devika, Adi Bhautika, and Adi Atmika. The miseries due to our mind, miseries due to our body, miseries due to other living entities, miseries due to the Devatas. So here he continues, right? Jara, this is basically the 4 types of miseries, Janma, Mrityur, death, Vyadi, and Jara. So Janma is also a misery, birth. To take birth, any baby we know that comes out smiling and laughing, no baby comes out that way, isn't it? So they come out half trauma, blue-black, and then, almost half breathing. They had to actually be resuscitated in order for them to start breathing. So this is how we all came, without anything, completely dependent, and without dignity also, in a very terrible way. So this is Janma, pain. So, and then in this way it goes on. So Janma, Vyadi, Jara, Mrityur. These are the 4 miseries of material creation. So in this way, Krishna he talks about Dukkalaya Mashashvatam, and then he says, don't remain here. You don't have to remain here. You can come back with me to Vaikunta. So, and then he starts talking about the various things that can happen at the time of death, which would indicate that one person has gone to a higher level. So first he will talk about the Nyani Path. So there are some Jnanis who may not have achieved Vaikunta. So these Jnanis, if they follow the Dhyana Yoga process of meditation and everything, they don't reach Vaikunta, they only reach Brahman. So, and here he talks about the Nyani Path departure time of Brahma Jyoti. Now Brahma Jyoti is not going to be eternal, though Brahman is eternal and we are eternal, but that's not our actual position. We become neutral. We just remain like that. It's like like it's like, just floating in the sky. They know that they are liberated, they know they are self, they enjoy that knowledge that they are spiritual matter, but they are not engaged. So because they are not engaged, they are inert, so they can only remain that way for millions and millions of years, but eventually they will again either float downwards or they will float upwards, because that's the nature of the soul. They cannot remain in the middle point. They have to either go down or go up. So there is a Sanskrit term for this. It's called Tatashta Shakti. I don't want to give too many Sanskrit terms now. We will talk about these things in detail more in level 2. Okay, so he talks about the Nyani departure time. So very quickly, I will just mention a bit of those. So what happens if those who are in the Nyani path, in order for us to know whether they have departed towards the Brahman, these are some of the clues Krishna will give in Bhagavad Gita. So it is said the Nyani, the successful Dhyani departs in fire and light. So that means what they used to do, this is an example of Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra is the blind king. He eventually attained Brahman realization. He followed Dhyana Yoga process, and by the power of his meditation, when he was finally ready to leave the body, he concentrated the fire within his forehead, and in this way he self-ignited himself, immolation. He self-ignited himself, so in this way he died. And this is an example of a Jnani who is successful. They will die in fire and in light. So it will be bright during the day. It will happen. This is for the Nyani path. So this is considered auspicious for them. But that's not alone. It's not just randomly that they die this way, right? It is specifically fire and light is just one aspect. The Jnani also has to plan his muhurta. So if these are the different zodiac signs, right? According to the correct zodiac sign, he has to plan his muhurta. He has to die in a auspicious time, muhurta. And Krishna also will say that he has to die during Shukla Paksha. Shukla Paksha means the waxing time of the moon, when the moon is becoming brighter and brighter, during this period of the time. Valarpara, they say in Tamil. And he also has to die during Uttaranayanam. Uttaranayanam means this is the time when the sun moves towards the northern region. So this is the time from what do you call, the Pongal. From Pongal onwards, Makara Sankranti, they call it, all right? That's the time when the sun enters the sign of Makara. Makara is this one. This is the sign of Makara. So Capricorn. When the sun enters Capricorn, from then onwards all the way until Cancer. So from Capricorn to Cancer, right? That is the northern movement of the sun. So it's like somewhere between March until somewhere in, I don't know, August or what, I'm not sure. So that is the auspicious period of time of Uttaranayana. So the Jnani has to wait for that period. So it's mentioned that Bhishma Dev also was waiting for that period, but luckily for him, Krishna came. So then he was able to leave the body. Of course, at that time, Uttaranayana also happened. And then when Krishna also came, he was able to leave the body happily. So this is the Jnani departure time. This is how it happens if one is following the Nyani path. So, but Krishna says, but if you are a devotee, you have a VIP ticket. You do not have to wait for Muhurta. You do not have to wait for Shukla Paksha. You do not have to wait for Uttaranayana. You can die in any situation. It doesn't matter. You don't have to wait for Muhurta also. Because I completely take care of you, Krishna will say. Because the Jnani, he is not depending on the Lord. He's depending on his own ability. So therefore, he's trying to develop it. So he has to time things correctly. Whereas the devotee, because he is dependent on the Lord takes care of every situation, and he doesn't have to worry about these things. So Krishna will say in 827, although the devotees know these two paths, Arjuna, they are never bewildered. Therefore, be always fixed in devotion. So it doesn't matter. Even if they are not Shukla Paksha, even if they die in Amavasya, whatever, it doesn't matter. If they are performing devotional activities. So 828. Vedeshu yagneshu tapasu chaiva daneshu yad punya phalam pradishtam atyeti tat sarvam idam viditva yogi param sthanam upaiti chadyam. The person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of results. So the devotee does not lose in any way. What does he not lose? Because he is performing devotional service to the Lord, and maybe he may not have time to study the Vedas, he doesn't lose. He gets the same benefit of one who studies the Vedas. He says, Vedeshu, Yagneshu, Tapashu, Chaiva. So Vedas, sacrifices, Yagneshu, and Tapashu, austerities. So all of these benefits he automatically gets simply by doing devotional service to the Lord. He doesn't have to do, very great austerities and all that. He automatically gets the results in full without going through all those problems. Even daneshu, giving in charity or anything else, right? Pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities, yat punya phalam. Punya means pious activities, the fruits of pious activities or philosophical pursuits. All of these he develops, he gets it automatically. So therefore, what happened? Just a moment. Okay. All right. So therefore, Krishna says, simply atyeti tat sarvam idam viditva, he gets all these things. Yogi param sthanam upaiti chadyam. Simply by performing devotional service, he attains all these. And at the end, he reaches the supreme eternal abode. Just like how we saw Dhruva Maharaj, though he took the path of dhyana, actually he wanted wealth and everything. But eventually, when he attained the Lord, because by the blessings of Narada, somehow from dhyana, he was able to come to bhakti by the blessings of Narada Muni. So in this way, he attained everything. He got Dhruva Loka. He got all the punya, the benefits of everything, but he didn't want them. He wanted only to serve the Supreme Lord. So that is the pure devotee of the Lord. How someone like Dhruva Loka, Dhruva Maharaj became purified of his desires. Initially, he prayed to the Lord. Like just now Prabhu asked, right? Initially, we may have motivated devotion. But just like Dhruva Maharaj also wanted Vishnu because he wanted a kingdom. So that's why Krishna says, right, there are 4 types of people. One who is distressed, one who is looking for wealth or gain, and one who is curious simply. But Krishna says that amongst these 4, the Nyani is the dearest to me. So because he is wanting me for understanding my qualities, understanding my nature, he wants to attain me. But the devotee is even greater because the devotee wants to love the Lord. Of course, initially the motivation is because they want to, get whatever or something like that. But that is not pure devotion. The more we follow the process of bhakti, it will purify our hearts, and these desires will no longer be there. So that is the process of bhakti. So in this way, Krishna says, that which the Vedantis describe as unmanifest and infallible, he's talking about the Brahman. That which the Jnanis will talk about the Brahman, that which is known as the supreme destination, that place from which having attained it, one never returns, that is my supreme abode, Krishna says. And in this way, Krishna wants to arrange for the jivas to come back to him. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is greater than all, is attainable by unalloyed devotion. So this is the path. We have to reach this stage, and then by the mercy of Guru and Krishna, we can attain the ultimate destination. So this is basically what chapter 8 is all about. So with that, we like to, before we end, I just like to talk about what is devotional service. Let me check the time, 9:37. Okay, it's a bit late, but never mind. It's quite fast. If you can just spare me another 5 minutes. So what is this devotional service? So we take these points from scripture. So in the Bhagavatam, Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, he is the one that Hiranyakashipu, the demon, his own father tried to kill him in various ways because Prahlad became a devotee of Krishna, of Vishnu. So, and that time, the Lord came as Narasinghadev, the half man, half lion incarnation to save Prahlad and to establish and all that. So Prahlad Maharaj, he would pray when Hiranyakashipu will ask Prahlad, "Oh Prahlad, what did you learn in school? Tell me." And then he will tell, because Hiranyakashipu was a sworn enemy of Vishnu. He wanted to kill Vishnu. Actually, he says he wants to kill Vishnu and drink Vishnu's blood. Why? Because his brother Hiranyaksha was killed by Vishnu, the Varahadev incarnation, when the Lord came as a boar. So therefore, he took a lot of, he got a lot of blessings from Brahma. He wanted to become immortal. He asked Brahma, "I want to live forever." But Brahma said, I myself don't live forever. I can't give you that blessing. I'm sorry. So then he asked, "I cannot be killed this way. I cannot be killed by weapons. I cannot be killed in the day. I cannot be killed in the night." So it's a very interesting story. One day we will talk about the story. But anyway, this Prahlad Maharaj, he prays this way. Sri Prarada Uvacha, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, Smaranam Pada Sevanam, Archanam Vandanam Dasyam, Sakyam Atma Nivedanam. These are the 9 processes of bhakti in which we can perform bhakti for the Supreme Lord. And it begins with Shravanam. So what is this Shravanam? Shravanam means to hear. So that's the first thing. We cannot do full seva until we begin hearing, because we do not know the glories of the Lord. So simply hearing itself is a seva. If we can simply hear the glories of the Lord, simply hear the names of the Lord, simply hear the pastimes of the Lord, or glorifications in any way, that is seva, bhakti seva, devotional practice. And this is very important. It begins this way and it must continue with us throughout. So therefore I put a star here. Shravanam is never to be abandoned. It is always to follow in every situation. So Shravanam here is like how there are different personalities, many examples of personalities who have perfected their life from Shravanam. So an example of such a personality is Parikshit Maharaj. Parikshit Maharaj is the grandson of Arjuna, and he was cursed to die within 7 days for a very insignificant mistake. But rather than counter the curse, he decided to accept it and take it as a reason to give up his kingdom and to fully dedicate himself into devotional activity. So what he did, he came to the Ganga and he wanted to fast till death. And then at that time, the sage, the great sage Sukadev Goswami, the son of Vyasa, he came and he spoke the Srimad Bhagavatam just for the benefit of Parikshit Maharaj. So that's how Bhagavatam was spoken. And he sat there 7 days and 7 nights hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam. And after that, he attained the Supreme Lord. So this is the process of Shravanam. So it said that Parikshit Maharaj perfected his life simply by taking shelter of hearing, Shravanam. So what else can we do with Shravanam? So Shravanam is hearing. So we can hear Gita, we can hear Bhagavatam, we can hear spiritual lectures, we can also hear chanting. So the idea of japa is while we are chanting, we want to hear the names spoken. So we speak it we don't speak it very silently. We say it in a just enough voice that we can hear our own voice. So we want to feedback. It's like speak here, speak here. So mind is controlled in this way. It's a feedback loop. So then the second process, which is called the Kirtanam process. Now this process of Kirtanam is the most important process because it is the Yuga Dharma for Kali Yuga. It is the established process for Kali Yuga. Of course, it has to begin with Shravanam, but the main thing is going to be Kirtanam for all of us. So Kirtanam is chanting the names of the Lord, Nama Sankirtan especially. Like I posted one nice video today on Nama Sankirtan, on chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So like that we can hear and we can also chant. So we have to do this daily. So in this way that becomes sadhana. So that is bhakti process. So this kind of practices, ideally we should do it daily. Why? Because we want to train our mind so that we can eventually remember the Lord. Smaranam. So this is the third process, smaranam, to remember the Lord. Because remember what chapter 8 says, whatever we remember at the time of death, that we will attain. So how can remembrance come? It cannot artificially come. We cannot artificially stage our death in such a way that we will remember the Lord. We will be cheated. So it can only come when there is practice. So we can take up the practice by chanting his names constantly, by repeating his names constantly, by doing service to him constantly, by hearing about him constantly. In this way, daily, if we do it, then there is guarantee that one will be able to remember the Lord at the time of death. So this is Vishnu's Paranam. So these are the three main important processes. There are other processes also, like Archanam. Archanam is worship, puja, to perform worship for the Lord, for the pleasure of the Lord, right? Not asking anything in return, but simply for the pleasure of the Lord. That is Archanam. And there is Pada Sevanam, the next process. Pada Sevanam is a very detailed process. Here, it's actually service, different types of service, like Lakshmi Devi. Lakshmi Devi, okay, before that I should mention, the personality who perfected his life out of Shravanam is Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad Maharaj, though he was put into so many horrible situations by his demon father, he remembered the lotus feet of the Lord in every situation, and he was completely unaffected. And he perfected his life that way. So the personality who perfected his life by Kirtanam, by speaking, is none other than the person who spoke to Parikshit Maharaj. You know, this is Parikshit Maharaj. The one who spoke to Parikshit Maharaj is Sukadev Goswami. So he perfected his life from Kirtanam, by speaking the glories of the Bhagavatam. So therefore, we spoke about Smaranam, then there's Archanam, and then there is Pada Sevanam. Example of a person who perfected her life out of Pada Sevanam is Lakshmi Devi, always at the lotus feet of the Lord. So Pada Sevanam can mean many things, like, you know, following the tenets of devotional practice to strictly follow. That is all Pada Sevanam. This is a detailed subject matter. And Vandanam is offering prayers and offering obeisances to the Lord. This is beautiful prayers. This is Akrura, who perfected his life in this way. And then Kunti Maharani, she's another one who perfected her life by offering beautiful prayers to the Lord, described in the Bhagavatam also. And then we have Dasyam. Dasyam is servitude, the perfect servant, like Hanumanji. So in this way, one can serve the Lord without any return. He didn't want anything in return. He only wanted to be a perfect servant of the Lord. And even higher than this is Sakyam, like Arjuna, how Arjuna was a close friend of the Lord. And you know, here's another example of Sakyam, Sudama. So they were friends when they were young, and then they continued their friendship. So the rasa is even greater. The things that the friend can do for the Lord, these are all very high level. Dasyam and Sakyam are not at our stage. This is at a higher stage when one has developed this eventually. And then there is also Atma Nivedanam. Atma Nivedanam is like Ambarish Maharaj. Remember the first, the second chapter, the first chapter, at the end of the first chapter, I told the story of Ambarish Maharaj, how Durvasa Muni wanted to curse him for breaking fast in Ekadasi, and then the Sudarshan Chakra chased him everywhere. So Atma Nivedanam is complete surrender of mind, body, and soul for the pleasure of the Lord. So Maharaj Ambarish was such a personality. He used his mind, words, hands, ears, eyes, touch, smell, tongue, legs, head, in all these activities in serving, and his desire also in serving the Lord and his devotees. So that's a very high level also. An example of such personalities are like Mother Yashoda and also Radharani and the gopis. So these are all devotees who have completely given up everything for the Lord. So in this way, Prahlad Maharaj says, Itis Pumsar Pita Vishnu. Okay, one who has dedicated his life to the service of Krishna through these 9 methods, any of these 9 methods, should be understood to be the most learned person, for he has acquired complete knowledge. Because this is the process of bhakti, which can bring one back to the spiritual abode. So that's the conclusion of Shastra. And in this way, there's this nice verse, this is the last slide. Of all the different spiritual practices, the 9 forms of bhakti are the best, because they have great potency to deliver Krishna and ecstatic love for him. So of these 9 practices, Nama Sankirtan is the best. So that is why we say Kirtanam, chanting the name of the Lord is the best process. The others are all there also, but this should never be given up. Kirtanam and Shravanam and Smaranam, hearing, chanting and remembering should never be given up. Remembering will come as we follow hearing and chanting. The more we hear, the more we will want to chant, and the more we chant, the more we will want to hear, and in this way, the more we will want to remember the Lord. It will come automatically. By chanting the holy name without offense, one very easily obtains the priceless treasure of Krishna Prema, which was what I was mentioning, Prema. So let us chant together. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Tat Sat. So some key takeaways for this: death is the exam, life is the preparation. Krishna Smaranam or remembrance of the Lord is the key at the time of death. How? By performing Navavida Bhakti. That means the 9 different processes of Bhakti, which begins with hearing and especially by chanting the name of Krishna, which will lead to Smaranam naturally. And Bhakti Path is the direct VIP access back to Godhead. So it doesn't matter the type of death, though we do not have to wait for Shukla Paksha or Uttaranayana or any kind of those things. So or in light or fire, it doesn't matter. The Lord personally takes care, and where's the evidence of that? We will hear about that more in chapter 12. So later chapters also, 9 is also very nice, but chapter 12, very much he will say how he takes care of his devotees. So we are done. So any questions we want to raise before we end?
Prabhu, sorry to ask this question. I know it's rather late, but I just want to clear my doubts.
Sure.
You had earlier mentioned, Prabhu, that Lord Bhishma had actually waited for Lord Krishna to come and for the war to end before he decided to die.
Yeah.
But then Bhishma was actually alive, from my reading, for 58 days. And from my reading, it appears to suggest that he'd actually waited for the Uttarayana.
Yes.
And he actually died on Ashtami, you see.
Correct.
So would that be the correct reason as to, I mean, we've got this thing called Bhishma Ashtami on the 20th of February this year.
Yes, yes.
So in other words, because the war was only 18 days, he had waited for 58 days.
Yes.
So was he then therefore waiting for actually the auspicious time to depart?
Yes.
Thank you, bro.
Thank you. Actually, both reasons are there. He was waiting. The acharyas explain that in order to satisfy, because we don't want to discourage either paths. So the Jnana path is there, and because Bhishma, he was a very coward, not coward. He wasn't revealed as a devotee until very much later. So the whole world didn't understand him as a great devotee. In fact, Actually, he was very great devotee. He is one of the Mahajans. There are 12 Mahajans, and amongst those in the entire creation, 12 Mahajans, and Bhishma Dev is one of them. So, and why he's a Mahajan? Because he's such a great devotee. He didn't mind being killed. He didn't mind that people would say that he sided with the Kauravas. He didn't mind that, you know, all this negativity would sometimes be connected to him, because he understood the mind of the Lord, and he knows that the Lord wanted to keep him. Anyway, I'm detracting a little here, but the point I'm making here is he was a very great devotee, but he was hidden, covered, so nobody knew about it. So everybody thought that he was a great personality in terms of that, and he wanted to satisfy that thoughts also. He didn't want to discourage people who were having that idea. He was a great Nyani and everything. So he waited for Uttaranayana. Yes, correct. But at the same time, it was well timed, because after the Mahabharata war was over and Yudhishthira Maharaj had to go back and everything, Yudhishthira Maharaj wasn't happy. And Krishna at that time, knowing that Bhishma Dev was waiting for Uttarayana to happen, and Uttarayana is about to happen, he told Yudhishthira, you go to Bhishma and ask from him how to rule as a king. So this was Krishna's instruction. And when Krishna went together with the whole of them, when they received Bhishma Dev also knew that this is when Krishna would come. So therefore, it satisfied the Uttarayana aspect, so that the Nyani Path is also corroborated and established. So those who are Jnanis, they will want to think of it this way. But the devotees also understand that Bhishma was a very, very great devotee. And the verses are there in Bhagavatam, where Bhishma Dev will pray very, very beautiful prayers. How he fixes his mind on Krishna at the time of death. 4 beautiful verses he will keep at the time when he was passing away. So anyway, so that's the idea. So it's satisfying both ways. Okay, Prabhuji?
Yes, thank you, Prabhu. I mean, that kind of coincides with everything. Yeah, thank you very much.
Sure, thank you. So, but that's not necessarily the case with everybody. So Krishna is trying to say that, you know, he's trying to show that, you know, when it comes to a devotee, you do not have to worry about Uttaranayana or anything else. There are many other devotees in the scriptures which did not really wait for Uttaranayana, because devotees, what Krishna says, follow your duty and do these things so that you set a good example. So he didn't want to set a bad example to others. So the devotees always set a good example, but internally they are always thinking of the Supreme Lord. So these are some of the reasons, right? Okay, any other questions from anybody? Mr. Ganesh ji, any questions from your side this time?
No, none at all.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else? No? Okay, so if that's the case, we end here today. Tomorrow is Wednesday, so we will not have class. I will mention that in the WhatsApp also. We will meet again on Thursday. So thank you very much. Srila Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Jai Sri Bhagavan Sri Krishna Ki Jai. Hari Bol.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody.
Yeah.